It is, and I am live. I always miss y'all when I'm not going live every week. It's every couple weeks, and I miss you. Talk to me. How are you? I've been focusing more on connecting live with people in person. So that's why you don't see me as much online, but I'm definitely happy to be here. And if you are here with us, please let me know because I won't know unless you tell us in the chat you're here. You would know that I always like to have an interactive podcast. And one thing, I hope everyone's doing fantastic. One thing I want to put a shout out that I'm super excited about is my cousin Sandy's son, Rami Zakak. He recently won a cooking competition, like this high level, fancy cooking competition. And I'm so proud of him. He's in his first year of college. And what I want to emphasize, and this is what this show is about, and I'll definitely bring him on soon, is go after your dreams and don't quit, don't give up. And this young man is so inspiring, and he's gone after his dreams like my current guest today. So thank you all for joining us again. I'm Grace Redmond. Thank you for joining us on another episode of Real Talk, where I get to have real life, raw conversations with incredible people from my circles and communities who have created amazing. Today, my really awesome guest is Brenda Aho Tapaloa. Brenda is a leadership consultant, strategic advisor, and the founder of BAT Consulting. Brenda is a dreamer who has learned to turn her dreams into actionable steps so that they feel manageable and possible. Brenda believes that dreams are necessary. They stretch us to create a different world than the one we live in today, and that stretch can often feel overwhelming when we're trying to figure out where to even start. Brenda helps people who are starting new business or organizations write business plans, configure websites, develop systems, and identify talent that can support their vision. Brenda does this by leaning into some really cool superpowers she's developed over the last 15 years of her career. One being relationship building, connecting with people on a personal level and designing plans that reflect exactly who they are and what they want. Second, strategic planning, turning a dream or vision into actionable steps that feel manageable and keep the ball moving forward. And leadership skills, getting others on board the exciting journey towards your vision and dream. Thank you so much, and help me welcome Brenda Aho Tupaloa to our show today.
Thank you so much, Grace.
Oh, you're so welcome. I'm so excited to chat with you today.
And I am too. It's been a while.
Yes, it's been a while, and I was so excited when we reconnected. It's like the pandemic was crazy. Everyone went their own way. And then I'm like, you know what? I'm going to reach out. And I love we were connected. And like you had this amazing new story to share. And I was like, girl, we need to share this with the world.
I really appreciate this platform and for you just inviting me on here to share and impact people however they're meant to be impacted.
Thank you. Thank you for joining us. And I know we've, worked together for many years, on a business level, and then kind of it became more personal. I mean, you're an amazing, amazing person. Like you just have so much knowledge and so much experience. And I know that recently you made a really big decision to leave, a very successful corporate career to venture out on your own. And I wanted kind of to touch on that because so many people talk about moving on to do their own thing, and you did it. And just tell us a little bit about that, because I know it wasn't, all unicorns and roses. That
No, it definitely wasn't all unicorns and roses. And it came at a time when actually, so my son had been diagnosed with ADHD, which for those who don't know, it's a neurodevelopment disorder. And I had spent so much time on my own education and growing my own career. And I realized in that moment that he was struggling. And I was so busy in performing at work that I kind of just, he was kind of, I don't want to say it, but he was kind of second. And that was the switch for me. I realized that, okay, I had to be present for him. I know he's a smart kid. I know I can get him to where he needs to be, but I have to be present for it. And at that time I was commuting to the office, which was over 100 miles away. And I was doing that up to 3 days a week, anywhere from 1 to 3 days a week. So by the time I'm home, I am completely depleted. And he was getting all of my leftover energy, you know? And so I made the decision to put him first. And I didn't know how we were going to be able to survive and do it. You know, we still have bills and a mortgage and all that stuff. But I had to do it. And so, uh, you know, certain things happened that kind of pushed me along to help me do it faster. Um, but he really was sort of like the impetus behind it and that situation.
And when you're in that, like, I've been there before, and not so much. I know I talked about this before, not having to make the decision, to leave, um, you know, a job, but to get present, with my family. And it's not easy when, as career women, it's like we have all of these stresses. And you talked about, that was the impetus, but there was things that pushed you to do that. And sometimes, I say, the universe or God really has a way of moving us forward when we don't know what to do next. What were those things that helped move you forward?
Um, well, so uh, I was in an organization that I felt was growing in a different direction than where my values were. And I had to, in honor of my values,
Mm,
live in integrity with that and make decisions that honored who I was as a person, in terms of like respect, having respect for people and treating people the way they deserve to be treated. Um, and I didn't feel like I was getting that in that environment. And so and that kind of just fast forwarded my plan. I had a plan to leave. It just wasn't supposed to be that soon, you know? And so when I felt like the culture was changing and there was no more alignment,
mm,
then immediately, and it's just a whole thing with knowing your personal values, is that they drive all your decisions.
that's
And
true.
that's what kind of makes life a little easier, is that when you are so um, in integrity with who you are as a person and what's important to you, decision making, even as tough as it may be, it becomes a little easier because you have principles and, like I say, values that sort of like guide you.
That's
And so that
beautiful.
was sort of like when things sort of happened that didn't align anymore. It was just very easy for me to say, "All right, it's time for us to part ways."
And not being in alignment, what does that feel like? I know for me, when I'm not in alignment, like, I feel it in my body, like, I don't
Yeah.
feel good. What does that feel like for you when it doesn't feel in alignment?
Oh man, you like you say, you feel it in your body, you feel it in your gut.
Mm,
It's not, I don't want to say disappointment, but I tell my husband this all the time too. Is like when we get upset about things, it's usually because there's a misalignment somewhere with our values. Something has happened that has violated a boundary or a value that's close to us. And so you really have to like talk to yourself in it and really figure out what is it that's what is it that I'm feeling is being violated right now.
mhm.
And I felt it in my gut. It was a great job, really great job. I was making more than I ever made in my career, had really great perks, but I was unhappy.
Mm.
And that was just the end of it.
I hear that so often that, when I'm connecting with my clients or colleagues, and they get, and I experienced it too. You get to this place where, you have all the things, you're making the money and you have the perks, yet there's an unhappiness. There's something that's out of alignment,
Yeah.
which, brings us back to the values. And it can be scary, to make that move. And I know they've said, I've heard this before. um you could do hard things scared. You could do hard things, and still have that fear and still do those hard things.
Totally.
How did you overcome the fear?
Um, well, one of my values is faith. I am a proud believer, a proud Christian, and I constantly feel every day of my life that I wake up in God's grace, and that my life is a testament not just to His grace, but also His power to do exceedingly more than I could ever ask or imagine. And that really is just what uh, helps everything else dissipate. Nothing else matters at that point because I know, He's got me.
Yes.
And it might feel dark and scary right now. But I know that, God has a plan for me. He's created me for more, and I'm just going to lean into that and believe and trust.
I mean, you hit on so many points, and it's and I am a big believer. I have tremendous faith, and it's not always easy, you know. There's times, many times, where I'm in a situation and I just have this tremendous fear, and I've learned over the years, and I'm still learning because it's a process, to just let go and trust.
Yeah.
Because you're right. It's like God always, the God, the universe, whatever that may be to you, there's something high, a higher power than us that pulls us through. And I love what you said. Like when we just know that and trust that, the fear dissipates.
Gone.
Yes. And I, again, it's like I can be stubborn, and I've learned like when I let go and trust, like the possibilities and solutions come. But I'm human, and sometimes I can be stubborn.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
I I agree. Like faith is huge to have that faith. Um, and
And also
so,
surrounding yourself with people that want to see you win.
oh
I
yeah,
think that that's just so critical. And, we always talk about believe in
yeah,
yourself, but there's so much value in being around people who also believe in you and want to see like you flourish beyond anything, right? And so I've been so incredibly fortunate and blessed to have people who want to see me win, and
yeah,
that when I'm feeling really low and in those times when I'm just like, I want to go under the covers and not talk to anyone or do, you know, um, they pull me out. And they're like,
yes.
hey, get up now, girl. It's time to
I,
get up. you know, I'm so grateful. And honestly, my
oh,
husband is that person for me firsthand too. Like both he and my son are just like, time to get up. We got things to do and you've got greatness to achieve. And here we go.
yes. And and I think, relationships are so important. The relationships that we surround ourselves with, they're so important for so many reasons. But I love when you said something that you're really, proud of was your relationships. And I want to read this because it's so beautiful. So when I left my job, I received an incredible outpour of support from people that I had invested in over the years. I'm getting emotional because I think we fail to see that. People were sending groceries to my house, and I'd get alerts from Zelle and Cash App that I'd received money from people unexpectedly, and this was all without me asking for help. When I got sick, I'd hear the doorbell ring, and there's a bag full of vitamin C, turmeric shots, ginger, lemons, and tea. When I started back consulting, I received so much professional support from people offering marketing, legal, business, and acumen support. And so this just poured out to you. And what I loved, you said that incredible outpour of support from people that I had invested in over the years, and you probably didn't even realize what you were doing.
They had no idea. And it's just, the culture that I come from, relationships are huge, and it was just such a natural thing for me to connect with people. And that's why I say relationship building is like my superpower, where I
Yes.
can really connect with people. And I would take people to lunch all the time or, go to dinner. And someone asked me at one point, like, why are you always doing this? Why are you always paying for that? And at that time, I didn't think much of it, but I would just say I'm investing in relationships. Like these
Yes.
people are important to me. And man, when I tell you, Grace, if they came through for me, they came through, and I would just, like I said, I remember I got sick and really just wasn't feeling well. And I had mentioned it in a group chat. And then the doorbell would ring like an hour later and it's like DoorDash with bags full of vitamin C, ginger, and gosh, all of those things just kind of paid off. And I'm just so, so grateful for that.
No, I love these stories because it's true. It's like the relationships we never know. Um, and I always say it's okay. Like people are like, oh, why are you doing that, for free? Well, it's not about doing it for free. It's about being of service. It's about
Yeah.
giving back. And that's how I've, like you, like that's how I've, run my business all of these years because it just comes back around. But I want to talk about something because there is a fine line because we can, and I know we've both been there. There's a fine line. We can really deplete ourselves. And when we deplete ourselves and we're not setting boundaries, we have very little left to give. Being someone where you're really investing in relationships and giving so much, how are you, talk to us about some of the boundaries that you've been able to set, or like how you set boundaries and how to keep yourself full because we can't give from empty.
Yeah, absolutely. Um, I had to really learn over the years to say no. Like, no, I can't do it today or tomorrow. And I'll give you an example. We had a In our culture, we have this thing called fa'alawilawas, and that's where, we have these funerals, weddings, birthdays, whatever they might be, and the whole community comes together and they give.
Mm,
They give a little bit of money to help the family who's experiencing this to, put on whatever event they have to put on. So we have one coming up, and my aunt called a big meeting with us uh, nieces, and I love what she said. She said, this is what it's going to cost. This is how we're going to be able to put this event on. But do not stress yourself out. Give what you can give. And if you can't, just say you can't. And it's
yeah,
okay. And it took a lot for me to be okay with that. Right. Because I was just so used to giving all the time, and so when you, like you said, you can really deplete yourself, and when you have nothing to give, you have nothing to give. So I had to set boundaries by saying no, or saying I can't, or being able to, okay, I can't give financially, but this is what I can do. Right. And so that's one way I'd set a boundary. Just being open and transparent with people, right, about what's possible and what's not. Yeah.
and in the past, have you had a hard time setting boundaries?
Yeah, absolutely. I've always been a giver,
Mm,
and um, I came from a very, I'm going to talk about power distance index. I came from a very high power distance index culture, and power distance index really measures sort of like the degree that members of a group or society accept the hierarchy of authority and
mm,
power. And
mm,
so high power distance index cultures look like this. You have a hierarchy, you have someone at the top who's giving all the orders, people at the bottom take the orders and no questions asked, right? And that's the environment I grew up in. My parents taught me, whether we are right or wrong, when we tell you to do something, do it, don't talk back, don't complain. That's how I
same,
grew up.
same,
Yep.
same. But I never heard the higher power hierarchy index. So basically, it's like here's the top, and here's
Yeah.
the bottom, and
People
then
don't,
wherever they go.
I'm surprised.
I've
This is
never
something
heard it.
no one talks about it, right? But it's one of the six cultural dimensions, which is how one culture differs from another, right? So, and in terms of power, that's exactly what it measures: is the extent to which people of lesser power accept and are okay with people with higher power making all the decisions.
Got it.
And think of the military, right? Soldiers take orders from people at the top. They don't question it. They just do. And it totally has its place. Like for me, I feel like, the beginning of my career, it really helped me to earn credibility as being the person that gets things done, doesn't ask questions. You want it done this way, you want it done fast, go to B, right?
Yeah.
It had its place for me. But as I sort of like moved into other roles that required you to give feedback and required you
Mm,
to be more opinionated, go against the grain,
yep.
challenge the process. I had to shift from this culture I've been raised in for so long to learning how to operate in a low power distance index. And that's something I feel like people really need to be aware of so they can navigate it.
I've never heard of it, but now I'm understanding. And I grew up in a similar environment. Don't ask questions. This is how it is.
Yeah.
And then you do it, and then it doesn't. It benefits you till it doesn't benefit you. And then, but if you go against the grain, then you're a troublemaker. You're a B word.
Right.
Mm. And these days I take pleasure being those things because like you're pushing you're pushing the envelope. And yeah, it's not easy because we all want to be liked,
Yeah.
especially us givers. Typically, we give to be liked, so it's not easy to push against the grain. So, how did you own the power to push against the grain?
I I got educated.
Mm,
I had to learn, like I had no awareness of this to begin with, right? And when I went back to school, they taught this all in school, and I was like, oh my gosh, like that's me. That's what I'm operating in. And if I wanted to elevate and get a seat at the table,
mhm,
I had to be able to operate in this other environment that's very low PDI, that requires me to speak up, open my mouth, and have my own voice. And that took a really long time for me to learn. And that's why it took a long time for me to get a seat at the table, is because I had to learn how to navigate that on my own, right? They don't talk about it.
no, and then also owning who you are from within to feel comfortable enough to speak out.
Yep.
Because if there's resistance toward, when you speak out, being strong enough to handle it. And
Absolutely.
I've had to work on that. And now, actually, I want to read something else that, I can relate to as well. Something that you wrote that you're making me emotional today. So you wrote, being a minority woman in leadership is one of something that you're very proud of. Pacific Islanders make up less than 0.5% of the total US population, and there isn't enough data to identify the percent of representation we have in leadership roles as a whole in this country when we're not combined with the Asian population. I recall many times over the years where I was the only in the room, the only woman, the only person of color, the only woman of color, and there's a tremendous amount of both pride and humility knowing that I was literally creating space for others like myself at the table.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, you're gonna get me emotional. But here's the thing: when I started my career as a receptionist, um, I didn't. There were no examples of what a minority woman in power looks like in that industry, in that profession, and I was the one serving water, coffee, tea to these people sitting at the table. And every single time I walked behind those glass doors and into this boardroom, every seat, the name tags I put out, they were all men, white men. And
Mhm.
there was no way for me to know that there was space for someone like me at that table, right? And so um, I didn't realize that it was possible. And when I finally earned my seat, it I carried such a weight knowing that I had to leave the door open for others, and I
Right.
also had to like leave the seats next to me open for others to fill in those roles. And I didn't realize that until I interviewed someone. I think you sent me this person. I interviewed someone one day, um, and she was brilliant, a young Tongan girl, so smart, and just a
Ah,
brilliant, wonderful. She fit the role so
yes.
perfectly. And I interviewed her and I invited her to take the job. And she said something to me that it's just struck me. She's like, the reason why I want to work here is, she said, I walked into the building and I look around and I'm meeting you and you're making the decisions, and I saw myself. I saw my people represented running a company, and that's when it struck me like, holy shit, the power that you have.
Yes.
You need to use this to leave the door open for people like her and others who like want to see themselves up there, you know?
Yes, and I remember I'm getting emotional because I remember her. She came from a situation that was really challenging. She was working a situation that was challenging, and she was brilliant, and she was so smart, and you gave her that opportunity because remember you did end up hiring her, and you gave her the opportunity, and now, the last time I connected with her, she's in, like, this
Yeah.
incredible leadership role, so it's
Yeah.
oh,
Ugh, yeah.
I
Yeah.
forgot all about that.
Yeah, I know. And you know what? And that's the other thing I was talking about, the importance of surrounding yourself with people who want to see you win. And I want to share this scenario or this experience that I had, but I was preparing for this this huge presentation, high stakes, right? And I was presenting to a board of men. They're all men in this room, and I was ready to walk. I prepared for weeks, and I was ready to walk into this room. And the owner of the company came right before I was about to walk in. He pulled me aside, and my boss was standing there. And the owner looked at me and he said, "You're doing the presentation?" I said, "Yeah." And he said, "Are you sure you don't want him to do it?" And he points at my boss, right? And Grace, when I tell you, my heart nearly fell down to my feet. I was like, in that moment, I was challenged, right? I knew how much I put into it. I knew I could do it. I had the capacity. But the fact that he asked, like, "Are you sure, girl, that you could do this?" Um, my boss puts his hand up like this and he says, "She's got this.
Yeah.
No, she's got this."
Yeah.
And in that moment, every little, nervousness, anxiety I felt just dissipated because someone else was just like, "No, she's got this. Be
Yeah.
gone, Satan," right? And he just blocked that negative energy. And when I tell
Yeah.
you, I walked into that room like I was about to give a TED talk, girl, I was
Right.
I was ready. And it turned out great.
Sure.
Super engaged and really great support. So it helps when you have people who want to see you win.
Absolutely. And you talked about this early on, and that's why, having others believe in you. And I don't know why I'm so emotional today, but having others believe in you, and that's so important. And I know it's like, okay, it has to come within, and we believe in ourselves, absolutely. But when you do have someone believe in you, like, it gives you that little extra push. And I know you're this type of woman, and I am. That's why I started this podcast. That's why, I love celebrating people, because, you know, in my career, I'd see these incredible people sitting in front of me, and they didn't believe in themselves. And I'm like, how can you not believe? Like, you're amazing. Look what you've done. And once I started to, like, believe in them and talk to them and help them see what was within them, then I'd see them bloom, and then they'd go in and knock out the presentations or the interviews. That made me feel great.
Yeah,
Like, I want to support you. I believe in you. And
totally.
then sometimes we need that too. So it really takes, I mean, going back to, relationships are important, supporting each other, connecting with each other, and there's enough to go around for
Oh,
everyone.
yeah, absolutely. It this is so I also experienced sort of the opposite, where and it was unfortunate. It was another minority woman who had just gotten a leadership role, and she pulls me aside and she says, what's your game here? What are you trying to do?" And I didn't really get what she was getting at, because it was hard for me to believe that someone's going to try and, like, sabotage or whatever. So I tell her what my long range goals are, and she immediately looks at me and she says, "You're not qualified."
What?
She's Yeah, she's like, "You're not qualified. You got to have 12 years of experience." Like, she just named all these things, and it should have been a shot to the gut, but it wasn't. It had the total opposite
Yeah.
effect in that moment. It just gave me a pep, and it just made me work even harder, right? And
Yes.
it's sad when um, you can't get support from people who are in that role too, right?
True. And I'm that person. If you challenge me in that way and you tell me I can't, you know what? Watch me.
Watch
And
me.
so, like you said, like, okay, watch me. And not everyone's going to be on our team, but I
Yeah,
think those people that are not on our team are our teachers, even
yeah,
though they suck.
right.
Uh,
No, you're
but they're our teachers, because we don't need that outside validation. Like, I don't need you to tell me.
right, right. And it only just showed more about who they are than it
Right.
did about who I am.
Right, right. And and even, like, who am I to, if someone has like, I just talked about my cousin Sandy's son Rami, when before we got on this, this young kid, he was in the kitchen cooking, he loved to cook, and he wants to become a chef. He's only in first year of college. And back in the day, you know, my generation would have been told, "Don't be silly. That's stupid.
Mhm.
That's ridiculous. Go do something else." But, his family and the community encouraged him. Like, "You want to do this? Go do it. You're going to be great." And he just won this big, competition. He's not even 20 years old, or,
Amazing.
so who's and anyway, when people are poo-pooing our dream, it's because it's only a reflection of the belief in their own dreams.
Yep, absolutely.
I'm trying not to swear. I can't believe I just used the word poo-poo.
It's your show, girl. Do you?
So, I love all of, like, you didn't take no for an answer. You didn't quit regardless of what was happening outside.
You know what? I felt like I didn't have a right to quit. There were so
Mm,
many people whose dreams were tied to mine,
true.
without me even knowing it, right? And that, just like I said, how I'd never had an example before me of anyone who, you know, sat in that seat that looked like me. Um, I didn't have an excuse to leave. I was the example for others.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, and I feel that way a lot of the time, being a Palestinian American woman, and doing what I do. Like, basically, I was supposed to get married at a certain age. When I was told that I was gonna be pregnant and in the kitchen by the time I'm 18, and there's nothing wrong with that. Um, and so I feel the same way. Like, I need to continue to show up
Yeah.
regardless, to show, like, this is what's possible.
Yeah.
So, girl, you have a lot of people here with us today, so I'm going to go and recognize those that are watching with us. And I apologize if I don't pronounce the names correctly. So, Viola Hart sends, looking good, Brenda. Great story. Alec Lawasa is here with us, says, let's go. Candice
Oh, yes.
Monafagya, considering like our best friends are, Pacific Island Tongan, like I should get this. Alex says, love you. Love how you mentioned faith as top priority, the vulnerability to discuss why you made the career shift and values. Pastor Mashali was just up here in Oregon, emphasizing the importance of core values. So, yes, I love how you talked about that. And thank you, Alex. Nadasha Papu Sophia's with us. Yes. And on top of that, you're female. Yes, we're female in a male dominated industries, both of us.
Yeah.
Tammy Cantrell, oh wow, what a quote from the book, right? I mean, what you wrote, Brenda, was beautiful. The Golden Boy Club is what we call all white men in the South. Thank you, Tammy. I appreciate that. Definitely. She said this is so moving. Breaking glass ceilings, Brenda, you did it. Romena is saying that. So you got that vibe. Duchess Cherry's also here with us. So she loves it. Becky Woods is also here. So this is awesome. So thank you all of us that are joining us live, and thank you all of you on the replay, because this has been a really fun discussion. So something you talked about was sitting at the table. So how different were the challenges that you experienced while earning the seat at the table versus keeping the seat at the table?
um, both were challenging. However, once I got my seat at the table, you're held to a higher standard after that. And I was surrounded by different people, and I was in a different political game. And that's what made it really difficult, because in politics, gloves are off. And,
Mhm.
when I was trying to earn my seat at the table, I had so many people in my corner who were helping me get there. And after I got my seat, my circle just, it just, everything just kind of shrunk. And I had these core people who were there, but then I felt like there were more people out there who were just trying to take it away, and so keeping my seat was difficult, in that I felt like I was challenged, really challenged in, I don't want to say being a woman, but it felt like that sometimes. I'll give you an example.
Yeah,
Um,
please.
I I was running a new department, and the department had a really hard job. You're dealing with people who are swearing at you,
Mhm.
uh, berating you all day throughout the day. Just the customer complaints, basically. And the young lady I was talking about before, the young Tongan lady, she's like, you know what? This isn't good for my health. And she wanted to leave. And I'm just like, I got really emotional about it. Number one, because I let it get to this point where it weighed on her that much, right? I was involved enough to mitigate that sooner. And so, anyway, I got really emotional as I tried to salvage her position and find a role for her that could help her get back to this equilibrium. And in any case, I'm talking to the boss, I'm talking to another VP, I'm telling them about the situation and how it's, deteriorating the health of our member, and I'm getting emotional about it, right? And so after we get out of this meeting, I get pulled aside twice. The first time was, get yourself together. Um, don't be emotional. That was literally what don't be emotional. And the second time was, take some time for your mental health.
Mm.
So that that to me was challenging, in that I felt like it wasn't really about my leadership. It was about me being a woman in leadership, about me being an emotional wreck, about whatever you want to call
You
it.
know what's interesting? Men get emotional. I mean, I don't really watch the news or TV, but sometimes like they show they're emotional, but it's not when it comes from me, it's not emotion. That's like passion and
Yes.
so. But then if
Right.
I feel like you're a bitch, I'm like, no, I'm
Right.
not. Like I'm passionate about the subject I'm talking about.
It's so different. It is so different, and that's what I had to compete with, because, like I said, it was a male dominated industry and male dominated organization at that time, and talking about feelings and the well-being and mental health of my staff was not okay. They just had to suck it up and do their jobs. They were getting paid for it. That was kind of like the attitude that I was given. And what sucked about it is like every conversation I had, probably for the next 6 months, there was always, how are you feeling mentally?
Mm,
You know? And
so you
that
expressed
was,
yourself.
yep. Yep. That was the challenge that I dealt with a lot, is I always felt like I was trying to earn my, not just keep earning my seat at the table, but be equal with the people that I was working with. And that was the difficult part, because I didn't feel like they saw me as their equal. Um,
Which was had nothing to do with you, it has to do with their own beliefs.
yeah. Yep.
And, and then eventually you made the decision to start, your own business,
Yeah.
which is amazing. So tell us a little bit about that and how that's progressing.
Yeah. So I've been, I don't know if I did post this. So I had been involved in small projects kind of that I did pro bono. And um, when I had connected with some other people in my network who were like they've been thinking for a long time. They wanted to start their own business. And I connected with them and said, look, this is what you got to do first. And then second, let's just start with that. And as we started with that, there's just like this level of, oh, if we did this, then we can do that, then we can do that. And we
Mm,
just broke it down into these like manageable steps that, just like I said, makes the dream just feel more manageable and possible. um, they became my first paying customer.
that's
And
awesome.
so that's kind of where I'm at right now. I haven't been doing a whole lot to promote it and talk about what I'm doing, because I've just been busy on smaller projects. But
Yeah.
this has been a great opportunity for me to sort of like get out there,
Yes.
and just kind of have reach or touch people in a way that I haven't been able to do before.
I love it. And you're amazing. And so, like you said, there's so many things that you help with. So tell us a little bit about some of the services and solutions that you offer. Is it just small businesses or does it matter?
Honestly, for me, it doesn't matter. I mean, I say it's for people that are starting a business or an organization, but it's also for established businesses that want to start a new program or launch a new department or something new that they want to create. Um, they need a strategy and a plan to get there. And
Mhm.
so, like I said, my sort of superpower is strategy, and relationship building, in where I can really level with someone and create plans that reflect who they truly are, and being able to tap into that, um, and get them sort of like, I guess, a plan. I don't know how else to say it, like a plan to move forward and get there. Yeah.
And, I've witnessed, much of your career growth. I mean, I didn't meet you when you started as a receptionist, but I met you, slow after that. And it's incredible to have just witnessed you move in to these leadership roles and earn that seat and own it, because I know that, and I know the owner, and and it wasn't an easy environment.
Yeah.
And the fact that you were able to navigate that and do what you did, and they have tremendous, tremendous respect for you. I mean, like just amazing, like how you'd walk in the room. I want to also get this other side. Like you'd walk in the room and they would listen. They did come to you for a lot of things. So it's been amazing to witness your journey. And then I was even more excited to hear that you've stepped out to start your own business, because so many of us want to do that. What is one tip that you can give someone who, might still be in, their role as a leader or an executive, but they really want to jump out and start their own firm? What's one piece of advice you can give them?
Don't overthink it. You
Mm,
know, I talked about this in my bio on my website, is that I spent a lot of time just talking about it and overthinking it. And when I get to this point, that's when I'm going to do it, and um, you could be waiting a really long time, too long, you just got to make the first step, just make the decision at first that you're going to do it. And yeah, just do it. Honestly,
mm,
you can
do
figure
it.
things out as they go.
That's right. And just have the faith and just jump, do it. I'm really now into the Mamba mentality. Just get out there and
Just get out there.
do
Yep.
it. So
Awesome.
it's been so amazing to have you on. I could be hanging out here with you all day because there's so much we could talk about. But for those of people that are listening, where can they find you? Get more of you.
Oh, on my website, www.backconsulting.net. My contact information is all on there, and I'm in the process of rebuilding the site, so it doesn't look the way it should look right now, but you can find my contact information on there.
Doesn't matter. It looks great. It looks great to me. And I'm so grateful for you joining us and being so open and vulnerable. And it was just I feel full, Brenda. Thank you. And for those of you watching, thank you so much for joining us live. I see Brandy hopped on. Hey, Brandy. I appreciate you. And for those of you watching the replay, thank you so much because I know there are so many other places that you can be. And I'm grateful that you are here with us. And just, I can't say anything else, but just I'm grateful. And I'm so grateful to do this with you all. Brenda, thank you for joining me today. Hang on with me. And for the rest of you, really make it an amazing day. I'm grateful for you. Take
Thank
care.
you.